100 years ago this month, the movie sex symbol was born. There had been leading men in the movies for sure, but before 1921, there had never, ever been anything like the sensation that surrounded a 26-year-old actor by the name of Rudolph Valentino. He'd been kicking around the movie business for nearly a decade, often using his dark Italian good looks to make himself a convincing heavy. But then, in 1921, he was cast in The Sheik, the film that would forever change his life and the course of the movies. I'm Bill Newcott, film critic for the Saturday Evening Post. The Sheik is just one silent film that anyone who claims to be a movie fan has just got to see. We'll take a look at this landmark film, plus 5 more silent films that totally stand up to the test of time on Movies for the Rest of Us. To mark a century of The Sheik, Paramount Home Entertainment has released a high-definition Blu-ray edition of The Sheik, a restoration assembled from the best surviving elements from around the world. Now, make no mistake, across the Atlantic and even in some corners of America, in 1921, innovative filmmakers were making movies that explored previously uncharted regions of cinematic creativity. The Sheik was not one of those films. It was a crowd-pleasing, pulse-pounding potboiler, an improbable romance involving a plucky English woman who falls for the charms of a dashing, European-born Sahara Desert sheik. Valentino was not even top-billed in The Sheik, but audiences made him the star. Lines of moviegoers, mostly women, lined up around the block to see him. The term Latin lover was invented in 1921 just to describe Rudolph Valentino. When he died at age 31, 100,000 people lined the street in New York to watch his body pass by. To this day, every year on his birthday, at least one woman in black arrives at his Hollywood tomb to lay a single red rose. You can draw a direct line from Brad Pitt and George Clooney on through Burt Reynolds and Cary Grant and Clark Gable, and it will dead end at Rudolph Valentino, the original screen heartthrob. The Sheik is a must-see for movie history fans, but admittedly its histrionic style makes it more of a curiosity than a masterful film. But you would be mistaken to write off all silent films as hopelessly archaic, overacted, and generally irrelevant. More than a few stand out today as every bit as watchable, every bit as thrilling as they were the day they opened at a movie palace near you. Here are 5 silent movies everybody can love. Most film lovers are familiar with this scene from D.W. Griffith's 1916 epic Intolerance, but the fact is the Babylonian Feast takes up only a few minutes of what remains one of the most ambitious movies ever made. Griffith tells not one, but 4 stories during the film's 3+ hours, and he tells them simultaneously. The Babylonian story, the story of Christ, the story of the 1572 St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, and a modern story about a woman desperately trying to save her husband from being unjustly hanged for murder. If you can't bring yourself to sit through the whole movie, and shame on you if you can't, at least fast forward to the final 15 minutes when Griffith miraculously brings all 4 stories together, cutting furiously among them. Everything anyone has ever known about film editing is on display in those wild last minutes. With Intolerance, you are watching the modern cinema being born before your eyes 105 years ago. Movie directors are still ripping off Fritz Lang's 1926 science fiction triumph, Metropolis. His vision of a tiered, towering futuristic city resurfaces in sci-fi films virtually every year. His sparking, spectacular creation of a female robot inspired virtually every monster movie that's been made since then. And his vision of a dystopian future in which wealthy overlords literally push the world's commoners underground is echoed regularly in cinema from around the world. Lang's special effects are mind-bending, rivaling the best any 21st century digital artist could possibly create. Even better, Metropolis is a thrilling, sensuous adventure with new, dazzling visions by the minute. It's the best movie in 1926, and it remains one of the most entertaining films ever made. The first outright horror film ever made remains one of the most haunting. A masterpiece of German expressionism, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari remains a celluloid nightmare, a fever dream of lust, madness, and murder. Werner Krauss plays a hypnotist who controls a sideshow sleepwalker and who bids his sleeping stand-in to commit murders on his behalf. With its angular sets and ingenious use of foreshortening, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a disorienting descent into the mind of a madman. Film fans will tell you that the World War I epic Wings was the first winner of a Best Picture Oscar back in 1929, but that's not entirely correct. There were 2 Best Picture awards that year. Wings won the award for Outstanding Picture, but the equally coveted award for Unique and Artistic Picture went to Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans, F.W. Murnau's poetic tale of love, lust, betrayal, and repentance. Murnau's extensive use of tracking shots gives Sunrise a sense of urgency that was at the time revolutionary and is now commonplace. When a young married man follows the siren call of a scandalous city woman, we make that fated journey with him through a forest, across a field, and finally to the water's edge. And as she devilishly suggests he drown his wife so they can run off together, Murnau, as the silent era breathes its last gasp, devises a way to make even the traditional title card drip with drama. At the sunset of the silence, Sunrise lit the way to the future of filmmaking. Hollywood had been making talkies for 4 years, but Charlie Chaplin wasn't having any of that. In 1931, he made one last silent film, and City Lights proved that while sound was an inevitable new ingredient to movies, it was the magic of the moving image that was the heart and soul of the art form. This is Chaplin's tramp in all his facets, innocent, scheming, indignant, and sentimental. He spends nearly the whole movie trying to raise money to pay for a blind girl's eye surgery, and as maudlin as that might sound, the payoff is perhaps the single most satisfying fade-out in movie history. Chaplin toiled for years on City Lights, doing up to 300 takes of individual scenes, but his perfectionism paid off. Even today, City Lights is considered one of the towering films of the 20th century, ranking at number 18 in the BBC's 100 Greatest American Films. The era of sound ushered in the age of the screenwriter, and indeed, some of the most profound literature of the past 100 years can be found in the world's great screenplays. But for the first 30 years or so of filmmaking, the only real voice the movies had was provided by actors, directors, and editors of uncommon talent. Anyone who says they love the movies owes it to them and to themselves to feast upon their enduring legacy. For the Saturday Evening Post, I'm Bill Newcott.